Here we are going to discuss about the standing wave pattern of the de Broglie wavelength of orbiting electrons. According to the quantum mechanics, particles like electrons have dual nature. So in this presentation we are going to see the standing wave pattern of the de Broglie wavelength associated with orbiting electrons in a stable orbit. Now the electron is not yet placed in the orbit, first orbit. Now I am going to move the electron in the first orbit. Now you are able to observe how the standing wave pattern is created in the case of first orbit electron. Slowly I am moving and I am going to place the electron exactly on the first orbit. Look at, you are able to see the movement of the electron in standing wave pattern. Nearby, the wavelength of the electron which is moving in the first orbit, it is also calculated. Okay. Now I am going to switch over to this next orbit. The orbiting electron in the first orbit to be moved from first orbit to second orbit. Look at here. I am slowly moving the electron from first orbit to the second orbit. Now you can see the standing wave pattern of the electron. Okay. So its corresponding wavelength in the second orbit is also calculated in the board. You can observe the de Broglie wavelength of the electron in the second orbit. Now the electron to be moved from second orbit to third orbit. Look at how wavelength and how standing wave pattern changes. Look at that. Wavelength increases and you can see the movement of the electron in the standing wave pattern. You can see some discontinuity in the wave pattern. It shows that the electron is not properly placed. Now I am going to place the electron exactly in the third orbit. Look at here. You can see the complete structure of the wave pattern. Okay. So this is the standing wave pattern of the electron when it is revolving in the third orbit. Now I am going to move the electron from third orbit to fourth orbit. Look at how the wave pattern changes, how the wavelength changes. Now we will check it up whether it is forming the wave pattern or not. Still the wave pattern is not properly formed. It shows that the electron is not properly placed. Now the wave pattern is not yet completely created. We have to check it up. Only at the end point we can see slight look at here. This is the standing wave pattern of the electron in the fourth orbit. Wavelength also increases when it is revolving in the fourth orbit. Its corresponding wavelength, de Broglie wavelength of the electron in the fourth orbit is also calculated. When the electron moves from one orbit to another orbit, if you switch over from the first orbit to the second orbit, the de Broglie wavelength also increases. Now we are going to see what will happen in the case of fifth orbit. Now the electron is slowly brought from fourth orbit to fifth orbit. We will see whether it is able to create the standing wave pattern. Look at here. It is not properly formed. Now we will check it up. Now it is perfectly placed. Electron is perfectly placed in the fifth orbit. It shows that it has formed the standing wave pattern in the case of fifth orbit. So we are able to calculate the wavelength of the orbiting electron in the fifth orbit with the help of the board work. Okay. So like that, we are able to place the electron in different orbits. We are able to calculate the respective de Broglie wavelength of the electron in different orbits. Now we'll check it up. If it is placed, if the electron is placed in any intermediate stage, that is in between two orbits, what will happen? Look at here. Now the electron is placed between fourth orbit and the fifth orbit. Look at that. We are not able to create any standing wave pattern. It is not completed. It shows that the electron is not present either in fourth orbit or in fifth orbit. That is forbidden state. There electron cannot revolve. If the electron is revolving exactly in a particular allowable orbit, then only standing wave pattern will be created. If the electron is kept in between any two orbits, standing wave pattern never be created. Such kind of states are called forbidden energy states. Okay.